Alrighty, so in today's video, I will be showing you all how to mine the cryptocurrency Bitcoin on your Raspberry Pi 4. And I know what you're thinking right now. Is this even useful? Are we going to be able to make anything? And I'll just tell you guys straight out, no. You probably aren't going to make much income by mining this cryptocurrency on your Raspberry Pi 4 alone. But let's say you have another PC, another computer mining Bitcoin, and you just have a spare Raspberry Pi laying around. This could be something that you want to do just to, let's give your Raspberry Pi a little bit of use. So if you are interested, this guide hopefully will help you get that set up. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. So let's dive right into how to do it. So step number one, we are going to be using an operating system called Raspberry Pi OS 64-bit Lite. And we do need a 64-bit operating system for this. You could do this in something like Ubuntu Server, but we're going to be using Raspberry Pi OS 64-bit Lite. So to install it, we're going to be using the Raspberry Pi Imager, and you can install this on Ubuntu, Mac, Windows, or even Arch Linux like I am on right now. So it's available for basically any operating system. It's simple to use, so that's what we're going to be going for. So we're going to go choose OS, and we're going to go to Raspberry Pi OS Other, and we're going to scroll down until we see Raspberry Pi OS Lite, and it needs to be 64-bit. Go with the 64-bit version, choose storage, and choose your device right here. I'm going with a SanDisk Ultra USB drive. I'm going to USB boot, but you can also do this from an SD card as well. And this is a part that is going to be really useful. So I personally am going to be setting up my Raspberry Pi headlessly, meaning I'm not going to be using a monitor at all. That's why I'm going to want to go over to the advanced options right here, and I'm going to go to always use. That's just what I like to keep it at. And you want to make sure that to enable SSH is enabled if you're going to be doing it headlessly like I am, and use password authentication. That's what I want to do. And a set username and password, go ahead and do that too. And my username is Pi, and I'll set in my password as well. It can be as whatever you want. Just keep that in password in mind and make sure to type it correctly. And if you're not going to be using Ethernet, you can configure Wi-Fi too, so your Raspberry Pi will automatically connect to the internet. But I personally will be using Ethernet, so I don't want that tick. And that's basically all I need right here. So if you are going to be using a monitor, this isn't as important, but it will make your life a little bit easier. But if you're not, I would definitely recommend doing this, because you can enable SSH, which is going to allow us to connect to our Raspberry Pi 4 from my Linux PC right here. So once you're done there, you're going to click save and hit write. So just let this thing write your device, write your operating system to your USB device like I am. And yeah, so once it's done, we'll be ready to boot up into an operating system. So right here, we can see that my flashing has been completed and I'm ready. I can continue, and I can pull out my USB drive from my computer or an SD card, plug it into your Raspberry Pi 4, power on your Raspberry Pi 4, and if you are going to be using an Ethernet cable, connect that and boot it up. And if you're going to be connecting wirelessly over SSH, I'll show you how to do that right now. Alrighty, so now that you have your Raspberry Pi connected to the network and it's connected and it's booted up, now we're ready to SSH into our Raspberry Pi, meaning connecting to it headlessly over the network. But of course, if you're going to be doing this with a monitor, you don't have to follow these steps. But so now you want to connect over SSH, but you don't know your Raspberry Pi's IP address. Well, I personally use this application on my mobile phone called Fing. Fing scans my network and it looks for all my IP addresses of my connected devices, and from there I'm able to find my Raspberry Pi's IP address and then SSH straight into it. So find that IP address, you could use Fing, or you could use some other method that you know. But once you have the IP address, we're going to open up our terminal. If you're in Linux, you can use the terminal. If you're in Mac OS, you can use the Mac terminal, or if you're Windows, you can use the Windows terminal or the command prompt. But now, in the terminal, I'm going to type SSH Pi, since Pi is my username. If you change your username from the Raspberry Pi Imager, that's going to be something different. And then right here, you're going to want to type in your IP address. So mine is 192.168.0.185. So yours probably is going to be different, but just type that in there like that. And are you sure you want to continue connecting? So I'm going to type yes. Type in your Raspberry Pi's password. If you changed it from the Imager, make sure to type that one in. And here we go, guys. See, we are connected over network to our Raspberry Pi. So right now, it's like we're on our Raspberry Pi terminal right now, which we're using a version of Raspberry Pi which doesn't even have a graphical user interface, so it's basically like we can access the whole operating system. So now we need to compile and install the miner. So the miner that we're going to be using today is called xmrig, and I've actually used it in my mining video for Dogecoin and maybe Monero too, but it's useful and allows us to mine Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as well. So first of all, we are going to need to copy some dependencies that this miner is going to need, and everything here will be linked in the description below, so you can just copy it straight from the description. So copy all the sudo apt-get install this stuff right here. Do you want to continue? Yes, and it's going to grab all the needed dependencies from the network, install it onto our Raspberry Pi, and then we'll have to go and start git cloning the project and basically compiling the miner. So now we're going to need to git clone the project, and it is going to be on xmrig right here, and this will be linked down below. Like I said before, all of these commands will. So just git clone the project. It's going to go cloning into xmrig, and then we are going to need to create some new build folders and cd enter them, meaning entering the folders from our terminal. So let it finish git cloning everything, and then we're going to paste this in right here, and this is just creating some new folders. And then we are going to want to cmake, which is going to start compiling it. So type this in right here, some cmake ... hit enter, and it's going to use the C compiler for us. That one doesn't take too long since it's just getting everything ready, that's what I think at least. Now we're going to start making it. So this command will take a little bit longer since it's going to have to build the whole thing, but it still doesn't take too long. But just leave this thing as it is and just wait till it's done compiling. Alright, so xmrig is now built. As you can see right here, it says build target xmrig, so our miner is built. But now we are actually going to want to go ahead and copy this config.json file that we're going to need to edit a little bit later, and this is going to help us to just be able to store our wallet address and what type of coin we're going to be mining, and this will just remember that, so it's a useful thing to have. So copy this wget command from the description as well, and now we're going to have that config.json. So if I type in ls, you can see that now we have a config.json file right here as well. So now we are going to need to go to the next step. Alright, so for the next step, we're going to want to create an online wallet. Well, I'm going to be using an online wallet. If you have another wallet service that you use, or if you have your own type of wallet, go ahead and use that if you can get it working. But this seems to have worked for me, so that's what I'm going to be using for this video. So I'm going to be using the Garda wallet. It's going to be over at garda.com, and it's free. It's easy to set up, so that's why, it seems to work alright. So I'm going to go create a wallet, and I'm going to go create a new wallet right here. I'm going to type in a password. So type in whatever type of password you want. Just make sure that it is memorable and that you won't forget your password. I've written it down. If you actually have, I didn't, but yeah. Just creating a wallet for all these different cryptocurrencies. Now we're ready to download a backup. So this is where we can access our wallet using just the backup. So make sure to save that anywhere you like, and just have that backup saved on your computer so you can access it in an event of an emergency. But I might even be able to access from other computers with that backup. I'm not really sure. I'm not a huge crypto guy because I honestly don't do this that much. So you shouldn't really take much advice from me about wallets. Like, I only really use this for the videos when I'm doing my Raspberry Pi. But yeah, enough of that. So now we are ready to go and select the Bitcoin right here. So this is going to be my wallet address for my Bitcoin wallet. So we're going to need to remember that there. But first of all, we're going to go over to this other website right here called Unmineable. This is where we're going to find our pools for our cryptocurrencies. So right here on Unmineable, you see there are many different cryptocurrencies, but we're going to be going with a BTC Bitcoin today. So I'm going to click that. And we are not going to be mining with a graphics card. We're going to be mining something called a RandomX using our Raspberry Pi CPU because that's the more powerful one. I don't even know if mining with graphics cards will work on the Raspberry Pi 4, but this is going to be our global server. So we're going to want to remember that. So we just click this right here. It's going to be our pool. So make sure that the pool is copied, and this is how we are going to set up our mining software. We're going to put BTC, your address, and then your worker name. So we have our wallet and our pool set up. So now we're ready to go ahead and add this to our config.json file. So we're going to minimize this, and here in our terminal, we're still connected to our Raspberry Pi. We're going to type in sudo nano config.json. So this is the file that we actually copied over with wget and enter. And here we have a lot of these different files. Just scroll down with me, bear there, scroll down till we find, oh, I must have passed it. So right here it is. So URL, in the part right here that says URL, make sure to leave the colons. You want to leave the colons, and you're just going to paste this right here, the global server. Make sure it says the pool has been copied, and just right click and paste that in there. So now we have our pool copied. That's what we want to have, and scroll down right here to you say where it says user. So first of all, we're going to need our wallet address. So go back to Garda. Here is your wallet address. Click it to copy, and it is copied to the clipboard. So right here, make sure it's in here, right click paste. So there is our wallet address. Well, first of all, I forgot. Before the wallet address, you need to type BTC wallet address. That's what you got to do. My bad. So BTC wallet address, and then we are going to want to type our miner's name. So for me, I'm going to type period. You have to do the period first, and then type in whatever you want to call your Raspberry Pi. You could say Pi 4, Raspberry Pi 4, Bitcoin mining, whatever. I'm just going to go simple. I'm going to call it Pi. There we go. I'm going to leave it as Pi. So now we have it set up. So our pool is in the URL. A user is going to be BTC our wallet address period Pi, or whatever you want to call it. Make sure that this is in the parentheses, or whatever you call those things, in there. So now we're good. So you're going to want to, on your keyboard, hit Control X, Y, and enter. So now that thing is saved, but if you want to make sure, hit the arrow key up again to get that command back in here, and we'll check it one more time to make sure that it is saved. You see right here, it is saved correctly. So we'll Control X, Y, or just Control X. So now we are actually ready to start mining. So let's try to start mining Bitcoin on our Raspberry Pi 4. That is a really cool thing to say. I mean, it sounds cool at least. So yeah, so to do that first, we're going to want to type sudo xmrig. It's that simple. Type it in, hit enter, and it is going to use your config.json file. You see it's going to connect to rxunminable.com. So it's already using your config.json file, and it's going to start mining. It is going to take a little bit of time to start, so I'll just leave this on right here till it actually gets to the part where it's going to start mining with their CPU. So this is some pretty cool stuff, if I do say so myself, to be mining Bitcoin on our Raspberry Pi 4. Alright, so you see it's going right now, and it says CPU, it says net. If you want to check how much hash rate you're getting, we're going to hit the H key right here. And you can see right now, I'm getting a hash rate of 94 hash per second. So my Raspberry Pi right now is actually mining Bitcoin. I mean, that just sounds kind of cool to say. I can hit H again, and I'm still getting around 94. So how do we check that? We'll open up your browser. We're going to go back to the unminable Bitcoin pool and make sure that your wallet address is copied again. Paste that right here in this, where it says your BTC address. Paste that in there, hit enter, and go. Right now we want to be under RandomX, and you see you have no RandomX workers online right now. So give it a second, let your Raspberry Pi continue to mine some, and I'll come back when it actually shows right here. It's going to show our Raspberry Pi mining. It's some pretty cool stuff. So here we are, and it is finally showing for me in Unminable. And you can see right now, it says that I have a current hash rate of 63, and that is the name that I named my Raspberry Pi. But I do have one thing to tell you guys. So I just waited about an hour, maybe a little less or a little over, but I waited a very long time for this to start to show up in Unminable. And I went back and I changed some stuff in here because I was like, did I not set it up correctly? But I did it the same way as far as I can tell. It just took so long, and like I tested this out yesterday and it took me like probably just 10-15 minutes. I don't know exactly, honestly, but it did not take an hour for it to show up in here. And I have proof right here from a screenshot from yesterday, and I was getting around 107 hash rate with my Raspberry Pi. I don't know what the issue is today, if unmineable servers are slow, or if that is even a thing, or if it's my network. I'm not really sure what's the problem, but I guess from this we can just learn that you got to be patient, and your time can really vary on how long it's going to take. Look, my Raspberry Pi's hash rate went down to 59. So I guess you just never really know how long it's going to take for it to show up, at least in my case scenario. But just be patient and eventually it will show up, I guess. That's what it did for me, and I'm really glad. I was about to give up because that was a long time of waiting. So yeah, so next of all, let's talk about how do you get this cryptocurrency out of here. Well, right here it says it only pays it to your wallet whenever your balance over 0.001 BTC. So let's say we got a current hash rate of 107. I'm going to use my higher hash rate from yesterday because it just seems a little bit better and more graceful to use than 59. So let's go back to unmineable right here, and we're going to click Bitcoin and go to randomX and end our profitability in 24 hours. Let's say we put 107 hash rate, we would make 0.000000199 Bitcoin a month is 6e minus 8 Bitcoin a day. So you're not even making enough Bitcoin to take it out and put it in your wallet in a month when mining with one Raspberry Pi. So it's not looking too good for our Raspberry Pi to be mining Bitcoin all alone, all by itself without any help. So that definitely is something that you're going to want to keep in mind, because like we said right now, you're not going to be able to get this coins into your wallet right here, your Quake wallet, without getting to that Bitcoin rate. So if you have a PC mining Bitcoin or have a herd of Raspberry Pis, your chances of getting this are better, of course, because you're going to have more horsepower. But I'm pretty sure that Bitcoin is just a hard coin to be mining, especially with a small device like the Raspberry Pi 4. And that's probably one of the reasons. Like, I've heard that mining Monero, I actually have a guide right here too, but mining Monero is probably a little bit easier on the Pi. I'm not fully sure on that, but it seems I heard that somewhere. So yeah, I mean, that's just what you're gonna have to live with the Raspberry Pi mining Bitcoin. It's not gonna be the greatest, and it's gonna be a little hard to get into your wallet. Okay, enough of that. So how do you continue mining when you want to close this terminal? Because right now, if I went and closed this terminal, all my mining processes would just end. Like, it would stop mining. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to have to use a service called screen. So for now, I'm going to end my mining, and I'm going to type sudo apt install screen. So screen is going to allow us to mine, close our terminal from our computer right here, and then continue mining. So it's a really useful and cool little tool. So here we are. I'm going to move my terminal over a little bit. And what we're going to want to type first, we have screen installed. We are going to want to type screen-s, and you're going to want to type in your name for this session. I'm going to call mine mining, screen-s mining, hit enter. So now we have a new screen session. So I'll start up the miner one more time. I'll go sudo-xmrig. So we're in my newly created screen session now, and well, how do I exit this screen session? Well, you're gonna go Control-A, Control-D, and you'll be able to exit the screen session. Okay, well now what happens if I close my terminal? So we'll close it, and now we're exiting our Pi SSH. Let's open it back up and let's access it again. So I'm gonna hit the arrow key on my keyboard, and it's gonna allow me to bring up the last command that I used in my terminal in my Linux PC server terminal, not my Raspberry Pi's terminal. I'll type in my password to my Raspberry Pi, hit enter, and now we're back. We're inside of my Raspberry Pi. Well, how do I access that mining session? How do I see if it's actually still mining? Well, you're going to type screen-r and hit enter, and that brings you back to your mining session. So you can Control-A, Control-D again to exit, do the same thing again, and you can see that you are mining. So if you did this from SSH, this is a really handy tool to use to be able to close down your terminal on your PC and leave your Raspberry Pi mining headlessly with it just connected to a cable. You don't need a monitor, you don't need it on your PC right here. It can just be mining all the time if you like. I mean, it really is that simple. So yeah, I hope this was helpful to get that set up. Alright, so I mean, we come to the end of the tutorial, and I hope that now you have successfully mined Bitcoin on your Raspberry Pi 4 and that you can see it in unminable that it is mining. And I do hope that you get a little better hash rate than I am getting right now, like the screenshot I showed a little bit earlier and getting around 107. But yeah, if you have any questions about this, let me know in the comments below and I will do my best to answer. At most times I will try my hardest. And yeah, so I mean, thank you so much for watching. A subscribe would be incredible, and it would be amazing if you could like the video too.